Never, ever give up hope. Never doubt. Never tire. Never become discouraged. Be not afraid. A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never erase a people's love for liberty. Brutality will never grind down their will to be free. Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia, for free people refuse to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principle, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
I can't believe I'm actually agreeing with Joe Biden, but only half agreeing with his statement, for God's sakes, this man cannot remain in power. I don't agree with the for God's sake part of the statement, and that's not a distinction without a difference. I think religions, and not just religions, the magical thinking behind religion has helped get us into this position. This is what happens when people don't think critically and they think magically. They're not being rational and they're just being emotional. And this is how we end up with psychopaths like Putin taking over an entire nation like Russia, having the Russian Orthodox Church back him up every step of the way in the invasion of Ukraine, and thousands of Ukrainians being slaughtered, millions being displaced, and that nation just being completely devastated once again by, I don't want to say the Russian people, because there's more than enough Russians who are well informed and who are taking a stand against Putin's regime. But the Holodomor, with Stalin's starvation, it was mostly the Ukrainian people who were being starved to death. There's a lot of people who are rightfully cautious about what Biden said with Putin not being able to be in power. We do not want to get into regime change. And I'm no military expert, a foreign policy expert. However, these are issues that affect my life, and I feel very compelled to shoot my mouth off about it. And the reason being, again, for anyone who watches my videos, I'm always mentioning about my family being from Cuba, my mother and my father fleeing a murderous dictatorship over there. These people are Cuban political dissidents, many of whom are still trying to fight the Castro regime, some who have been killed by the Castro regime. So this idea that, it's up to the Russian people, they'll take care of Putin, they won't be able to. If the world is trembling as it is in trying to stop Putin from slaughtering Ukrainians, and when it seemed to be possible that he was going to be taking over other NATO countries, that was a real possibility. Now it looks like he's backtracking, whatever. If the world is having a hard enough time doing that, if actual world powers won't do that, what makes you think the Russian people are going to take down that dictatorship? Dictatorships don't just implode upon themselves, the way the Soviet Union did. That was probably just a weight that could not hold itself because of the amount of incompetence. But China seems to be doing pretty well. That seems to be getting to literal Orwellian heights of just complete and total societal control. And a lot of people love to say Orwellian and quote George Orwell. Look, I've never read 1984. I've just watched parts of the movie and I've listened to parts of the book. And just listening to the first few chapters of that book, not only does that remind me of China's social credit system, it reminds me of what's been going on in this country. And back in 2020, during the presidential election year between Trump and Biden, it was kind of getting there. The way that people were changing their language, and especially when it came to Black Lives Matter, when it came to the whole thing of trans issues, which we're still having that problem. Don't think that can't happen here either in the United States. I'm not saying we need to go change regimes in Russia in order to stop those problems here in the United States, but this idea that it could not happen here, it could. May seem a little far-fetched, but and now that I'm trying to geek out on this and seeing how further is it going to affect my life, especially since Biden said expect food shortages as well. That's why I was kind of hanging on his every word with his speech in Poland. But he was saying things that I agreed 100% with him. And whether he wrote the script, whether it was written for him, or at what point he went off when he just went rogue and started speaking on his own, these are the moments that I thought where he really hit the nail on the head.
Every generation has had to defeat democracy's moral foes. That's the way of the world. For the world is imperfect, as we know, where the appetites and ambitions of a few forever seek to dominate the lives and liberty of many. There's simply no justification or provocation for Russia's choice of war. It's an example of one of the oldest human impulses, using brute force and disinformation to satisfy a craving for absolute power and control. It's nothing less than a direct challenge to the rule-based international order established since the end of World War II. The democracies of the world are revitalized with purpose and unity found in months that we'd once taken years to accomplish. It's not only Russia's actions in Ukraine that are reminding us of democracy's blessing. It's our own country, his own country, the Kremlin. It's jailing protesters. 200,000 people have allegedly already left. There's a brain drain leaving Russia, shutting down independent news. State media is all propaganda, blocking the image of civilian targets, mass graves, starvation tactics of the Russian forces in Ukraine. Is any wonder, as I said, that 200,000 Russians have already left their country in 1 month? It's not enough to speak with rhetorical flourish of ennobling words of democracy, of freedom, equality, and liberty. All of us, including here in Poland, must do the hard work of democracy each and every day. Remain unified today and tomorrow and the day after, and for the years and decades to come. It will not be easy. There will be cost, but it's a price we have to pay, because the darkness that drives autocracy is ultimately no match for the flame of liberty that lights the souls of free people everywhere. Time and again, history shows that it's from the darkest moments that the greatest progress follows.
It's very easy for me to make a YouTube video and say that things need to change and not be in the military. I'm most certainly not going to just go and volunteer to go to Ukraine and become cannon fodder while trying to fight Russian troops. I would just die out of sheer stupidity in any of those battlefields. I will try to donate to causes to charities that I feel like I can trust, and I'll see what else I can do to help. But something does need to be done. I agree with the Tulsi Gabbards of our Congress, especially someone like Tulsi Gabbard who has seen combat. So when I hear her being cautious, or I hear Dan Crenshaw being cautious about putting American troops on the ground, I agree with them, and I guess I'll have to take their word for it. But I also find it a little suspicious, the idea of just continuing just arming them. Because number one, someone is making millions of dollars with every javelin, missile launcher, or every rifle, every bullet. There are people who are making money from this. And I wonder to what degree it is more opportunistic to let this drag on than it is to just go in and stop it. And I know that we have the mutually assured destruction of nuclear annihilation with a nation like Russia, that with, I don't want to blame it on the Russian people, with a regime like Putin's that has, I believe, over 6,000 nuclear warheads, if I'm not mistaken. It's well into the thousands. It's more than the United States from what I've been hearing and from what I've been researching. So does China. I get it. We need to be careful. We need to be careful. We can't just go in with regime change. We already know what that's like in places like Iraq, which Tulsi Gabbard has been in, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam. But we also know what it's like to help a country like South Korea becoming all of North Korea. There have been triumphs. We need to stand up to evil. And I say that as an atheist. Evil is a useful word to simply describe the needless, avoidable suffering and cruelty that is usually brought upon by people who are just neurologically incapable of empathy towards others. I don't think animals are capable of evil, for example. Humans clearly are. And it's not about demonic spirits. It's not about spiritual warfare. We just need to accept that there are certain people, that's just the way their brains work. It's not even that those people themselves are evil. It's just, I wonder throughout human evolution, some people just have not, I don't know, it's like the gene pool is still producing people whose brains are operating as if though they are in the jungles of hundreds of thousands of years ago. Where you just, if you had empathy for especially animals, cute furry animals, you would die of starvation. And I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if people like Putin, they are these biological relics. They're almost reptilian in their self-preservation and their controlling of their environment and just killing however many people they need to kill, especially if they want to remain in absolute power. And he needs to remain in power. That's the only way he's going to survive now. It's the only way that he can actually continue living. He needs to now be a dictator, because if not, he's going to be tried as a war criminal, or he's going to be executed by his inner circle. But then that's the thing, that doesn't end the dictatorship in Russia. Somebody worse, whoever ends up killing Putin within his inner circle in Russia, what's going to come about after that is probably another Putin, and maybe a worse one. Maybe Stalin 2.0, though. I thought that's pretty much what Putin was. But anywho, I'll end this video by saying we can't leave it up to God. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to do shit about stopping the slaughter in Ukraine and throughout all the other dictatorships on this planet, in all the other wars and just areas of terrorism throughout the Middle East, throughout Africa, the drug wars in Mexico. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to do shit. Something needs to be done. I wish I knew what it could be. If you think you know, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out the links down below for any of my original art that I have for sale, as well as merchandise. And thanks for watching.